Have you ever found yourself at a crossroads in life, unsure of which direction to take? Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, everything seems to be falling apart, and the road ahead is uncertain? I've been there. I've faced those moments when life seemed to be moving faster than I could keep up, and I felt overwhelmed by the weight of decisions I needed to make. But what if I told you that there's a simple practice, something that's been around for centuries, that has the power to transform the way we approach life's challenges? A practice that has the potential to change not only your perspective, but also your reality. That practice is prayer. It might sound simple, or even outdated, but prayer holds a powerful secret. It is not just a religious ritual, it's a tool for connection, for peace, and for clarity, a way to step back from the chaos of the world, reflect, and find guidance. I remember the first time I truly understood the power of prayer. It wasn't during a crisis or a time of tragedy, it was during a time when I felt lost, caught in the grind of daily life, unsure of where my life was headed. I had been working tirelessly, trying to make my business a success, but I wasn't seeing the results I hoped for. My personal life was a mess, and I felt disconnected from the very things I had once cared about. One evening, exhausted and feeling like I was at the end of my rope, I decided to take a step back. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I had to do something. So, I sat quietly, closed my eyes, and just started to pray, not asking for specific things, but simply for peace. I asked for guidance, for strength to keep going, and for clarity in my life. At that moment, something unexpected happened. I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The noise in my head began to quiet down, and for the first time in a long while, I felt centered. I realized that I had been so focused on the hustle and bustle of life that I had forgotten to take time for myself, to reflect on my path, and to trust that things would unfold in their own time. It was in that moment of stillness that I understood the true power of prayer. It wasn't about asking for things to be fixed immediately, but about creating space for peace, for clarity, and for a deeper connection with myself and my purpose. And as I continued to make prayer a regular part of my life, I began to see the subtle, yet profound, shifts in my life and my business. But what exactly is it about prayer that can change your life? How can a simple act like this have such a powerful impact on our thoughts, decisions, and actions? Let's explore the power of prayer, and how it can truly change your life, one step at a time. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in the rush of everyday life. We're constantly busy, whether it's work, family obligations, or just trying to keep up with the demands of the world around us. We often find ourselves in a constant state of motion, juggling multiple tasks at once. And yet, despite all our efforts, we still feel like we're not getting anywhere. Have you ever felt that way? For years, I had been caught in this whirlwind. I worked long hours, built my business, tried to maintain relationships, and at the same time, I struggled to find a sense of balance. My life was a never-ending cycle of tasks, with little time for reflection or personal growth. I was exhausted, physically and mentally, and I knew that something had to change. But what? It wasn't until I began to look inward that I realized I had been neglecting something vital, the power of stillness. I had been so focused on doing that I had forgotten the importance of being. And in the midst of this chaos, I discovered something that would change my life forever: prayer. Prayer, for many, is a spiritual practice that is often associated with religion. It's a time to ask for blessings, for strength, or for guidance, but prayer can be so much more than that. For me, prayer became a means of finding peace in a world full of noise. It became a tool for reconnecting with myself and the higher purpose that I had lost sight of in the hustle and bustle of daily life. I remember the first time I consciously made space for prayer. It wasn't a formal occasion or a specific event, it was simply me, sitting quietly in my living room, at a time when I felt the most lost. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and began to speak, not with a list of things I wanted to ask for, but simply with words of gratitude and a desire for clarity. I wanted to feel calm in the midst of my busy life. I wanted to find a sense of direction again. As I spoke these words, I felt a shift within me. The noise, the worries, and the constant racing thoughts slowly began to quiet down. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to do anything. I didn't have to chase after goals or prove anything to anyone. I simply sat in the moment, breathing deeply, and allowing myself to feel the presence of peace. This wasn't some magical transformation or an instant fix to all my problems. But it was a moment of clarity, a moment where I realized that I had been so focused on achieving things. I had forgotten to pause and listen to myself. Prayer gave me that opportunity. It allowed me to reconnect with the inner peace that I had been desperately searching for. Over time, I began to incorporate prayer into my daily routine. At first, it was just a few minutes in the morning or before bed, quiet moments where I could center myself, reflect on my day, and set intentions for the day ahead. But as I continued this practice, I noticed something profound happening. Prayer wasn't just about asking for things to change, it was about creating a space for personal growth, for reflection, and for the stillness that was so often lacking in my life. The more I prayed, the more I began to understand how powerful this practice could be. It wasn't about asking for external things to happen, it was about shifting my own mindset and finding peace within myself. This shift in perspective was life-changing. I stopped focusing on external outcomes and instead started to focus on my own internal growth. For example, when faced with a difficult decision, I would turn to prayer to find clarity. I would ask for the wisdom to make the right choice, but also the patience to trust in the process. I didn't need to rush things or force outcomes. I just needed to trust that everything would unfold in its own time. In business, I found this practice to be incredibly valuable. As an entrepreneur, I was constantly faced with challenges, uncertainty, financial pressures, and the stress of decision-making. But prayer gave me the space to step back, clear my mind, and approach problems with a sense of calm, instead of reacting impulsively to challenges. I learned to pause, reflect, and then take action with a clear head. It was through prayer that I began to understand the importance of patience in business. In a world that constantly demands instant results, it's easy to get frustrated when things don't happen as quickly as we'd like. But prayer taught me that growth, whether personal or professional, takes time. It's not about forcing results, it's about allowing them to come naturally when the time is right. One of the most profound lessons I learned through prayer was the power of surrender. As an ambitious person, I had always believed that I had to control every aspect of my life in order to succeed. I thought that if I worked hard enough, planned enough, and strategized enough, I could achieve anything. And while hard work and dedication are important, prayer taught me that there are some things beyond our control. I remember a particularly difficult period in my business when everything seemed to be falling apart. Sales were down, clients were unhappy, and I felt like I was losing control of everything I had worked so hard to build. It was during this time that I turned to prayer with a sense of surrender. I asked for guidance, not to fix everything, but to help me understand what lessons I needed to learn from this experience. It wasn't about asking for immediate solutions, it was about trusting that whatever happened next would be part of the greater plan. And sure enough, as I continued to pray and surrender, things began to shift. Opportunities began to appear that I had not anticipated. I started to see the challenges as lessons, not obstacles, and slowly, my business began to grow again. But more importantly, I had grown as a person. I had learned to let go of control and trust that things would work out in the way they were meant to. This is the true power of prayer. It's not about asking for immediate change or hoping for a quick fix. It's about trusting the process, surrendering to the flow of life, and allowing yourself the space to grow and evolve. Prayer teaches us that change happens not when we force it, but when we create the conditions for it to unfold naturally. As I continued my journey with prayer, I began to notice subtle but powerful shifts in my life. Prayer became more than just a moment of reflection at the beginning or end of the day. It became a guiding force, something I could turn to in times of uncertainty, stress, or confusion. What started as a practice to find peace turned into a profound source of strength and clarity in my personal and professional life. One of the most significant changes I experienced through prayer was my ability to let go of the need for perfection. In business, I had always been driven by the desire to achieve the perfect outcome, whether it was a flawless presentation, a perfect sales pitch, or a business plan that anticipated every possible challenge. I believed that if I could get everything just right, success would be guaranteed. But over time, I realized that this constant pursuit of perfection was actually hindering my growth. In my quiet moments of prayer, I started to understand that perfection is an illusion. No matter how hard we try, there will always be imperfections, mistakes, and setbacks along the way. What matters, however, is how we respond to these challenges. Prayer helped me shift my perspective from focusing on what went wrong to focusing on what I could learn from the experience. I remember one particular instance when I faced a major setback in my business. I had poured months of hard work into a project that I believed would elevate my brand to new heights. I had made countless decisions, spent a lot of money, and worked tirelessly to make everything perfect. But when the project finally launched, the results were not what I had hoped for. The response from clients and customers was lukewarm, and I couldn't help but feel like I had failed. For days, I beat myself up over the mistakes I had made. I questioned my abilities, doubted my decisions, and wondered if I was cut out for entrepreneurship. It was during this low point that I turned to prayer. I wasn't asking for a miracle or an instant solution. I simply needed guidance. I needed to understand what this experience was trying to teach me. As I prayed, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I realized that I had been so focused on the outcome that I had neglected the lessons that could only come from the journey. I had spent so much energy trying to make everything perfect that I had missed the opportunity to grow from the mistakes I had made along the way. I also understood that failure wasn't the end, it was simply a part of the process. Through prayer, I gained a sense of acceptance. I began to accept that mistakes and setbacks were inevitable, but they didn't define me. What mattered was how I chose to move forward. I knew that I had learned valuable lessons from this experience, lessons that would make me a better business owner, a better leader, and a more resilient person. This shift in mindset was transformative. It allowed me to embrace imperfection, to see mistakes not as failures, but as stepping stones toward greater success. And as I started to apply this mindset to other areas of my life, I began to notice a change in the way I approached challenges. I was no longer paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes. Instead, I saw each challenge as an opportunity for growth. As I continued to incorporate prayer into my daily routine, I began to develop a deeper sense of self-awareness. I started to understand my own strengths and weaknesses more clearly, and I became more attuned to my intuition. Prayer helped me tap into a deeper level of understanding, one that wasn't clouded by the noise of everyday life. It became a way for me to connect with my inner self and gain clarity on what truly mattered to me. In business, this self-awareness proved invaluable. I started to make decisions that were aligned with my values and my long-term vision. Rather than simply reacting to external pressures or short-term results, I began to trust my instincts more and realized that I didn't always need to have all the answers right away. Prayer taught me that sometimes, the best course of action is to pause, listen to my inner voice, and trust that the right decision will reveal itself in time. This process of tuning into my intuition was not always easy, but prayer made it possible. When I faced difficult decisions, I would take a moment to sit in silence, breathe deeply, and allow my thoughts to settle. I would ask for clarity, for wisdom, and for the courage to make the right choice. And over time, I learned to trust that the answers would come, not from external sources or the opinions of others, but from within myself. One of the most powerful aspects of prayer was the way it helped me cultivate patience. In the world of business, it's easy to get caught up in the rush for quick results. We live in an era of instant gratification, where everything seems to happen in the blink of an eye. But prayer taught me that true growth, whether in life or in business, requires patience. I learned to appreciate the process, to understand that success isn't something that happens overnight. Just as a seed takes time to grow into a strong, fruitful tree, our efforts in life and business take time to bear fruit. Prayer helped me stay grounded and focused on the long-term vision, even when the results weren't immediately apparent. It was through prayer that I learned the value of persistence. There were times when things seemed to be moving slowly, when progress felt like it was stalling, but prayer gave me the strength to keep going. It reminded me that every step, no matter how small, was moving me closer to my goals. Prayer helped me stay committed to the journey, even when the road seemed uncertain. As I reflected on my journey, I realized that prayer had not only changed my perspective on business, but it had also changed the way I viewed life. It had taught me to embrace uncertainty, to trust in the process, and to find peace in the present moment. And most importantly, It had shown me the power of surrender, surrendering the need to control everything and trusting that the universe, or whatever higher power you believe in, has a plan for us. As time went on, the more I embraced the power of prayer, the more I began to see it not only as a personal practice, but as a universal tool that could guide and sustain anyone in their journey through life. The deeper I delved into prayer, the more I started to realize its profound impact on my emotional, mental, and even physical well-being. I found myself becoming more resilient, more centered, and more focused on the present moment. In the beginning, I had treated prayer as something separate from my day-to-day life. It was a moment of quiet reflection, a time to ask for guidance and clarity. But as I continued to practice, I began to understand that prayer wasn't just about asking for things to change, it was about aligning myself with the flow of life, about being present in the moment, and about developing an inner peace that could withstand the challenges of the outside world. One of the key realizations that came through prayer was the understanding of the power of gratitude. At first, my prayers were often focused on seeking answers, clarity, or help with specific challenges. But over time, I began to see the value in simply being grateful for the blessings I already had. It wasn't about asking for more, but rather appreciating what was already present in my life. This shift in perspective had a profound effect on my mental and emotional health. Instead of focusing on what I lacked or what was going wrong, I began to shift my focus to what was going right. I started to count my blessings, small and large, and found that by doing so, my sense of contentment and fulfillment grew exponentially. For example, during stressful times in my business, I would take a moment to reflect on how far I had come. I would remember the early days of building my business, how much hard work and dedication I had put into it, and how many lessons I had learned along the way. Instead of focusing solely on what wasn't working, I would give thanks for the progress I had made, for the people who had supported me, and for the opportunities that had come my way. Prayer became a daily reminder of the importance of gratitude. I began to set aside time each day, not to ask for things, but to give thanks. It could be as simple as acknowledging the good health I had, the loving relationships in my life, or the fact that I had the ability to pursue my passions. Gratitude, I discovered, was one of the most powerful tools for shifting my mindset from one of lack to one of abundance. But the real power of prayer came when I learned to use it not just in times of need, but as a proactive tool for growth. Prayer became a source of strength, not only when I was feeling lost or uncertain, but also when I was confident and clear-headed. It became a way to set my intentions for the day, a way to align my actions with my deepest values, and a way to stay grounded in my purpose. Every morning, before I started my day, I would pray not just for clarity, but for guidance in every decision I made. I would ask for the wisdom to choose the right path, for the courage to take risks, and for the strength to handle whatever came my way. It wasn't about asking for everything to go smoothly, it was about asking for the resilience to handle the inevitable bumps along the way. I remember a particularly challenging period in my business when I had to make a series of important decisions. I was facing uncertainty, and the pressure to make the right choices was overwhelming. I had a lot of options in front of me, but none of them seemed perfect. In this moment of indecision, I turned to prayer. I didn't ask for the right answer to appear immediately, nor did I expect everything to be clear. Instead, I asked for patience, for the ability to trust the process, and for the strength to make a decision without fear of failure. It was during this time that I realized the importance of trusting my intuition. I had always prided myself on being a logical thinker, relying on data and analysis to make decisions. But prayer had taught me that sometimes the answers don't come from logic, they come from a deeper, inner knowing. Prayer helped me access that inner wisdom, and I began to trust myself more. I took a deep breath, made my decision, and moved forward with confidence, knowing that whatever the outcome, I would learn from it. This shift in perspective was liberating. I stopped second-guessing myself and stopped letting fear dictate my actions. Instead, I embraced the uncertainty and saw it as an opportunity for growth. Prayer had taught me that I didn't need to have all the answers right away, and that it was okay to make mistakes along the way. The key was to keep moving forward with faith and trust that everything would unfold as it was meant to. As I continued to pray, I also began to realize the importance of surrendering to the greater plan. In the past, I had always tried to control every aspect of my life, especially in my business. I believed that if I worked hard enough, planned enough, and executed everything flawlessly, I could make things happen the way I wanted them to. But prayer showed me that there are certain things in life that are beyond our control, and that's okay. Through prayer, I began to surrender my need for control. I started to understand that sometimes the best thing I could do was to let go and trust that things would work out as they were meant to. This wasn't a passive approach to life, rather, it was an active choice to trust the process and to have faith in the bigger picture. This shift in mindset didn't happen overnight, but over time, I began to experience a profound sense of peace. I realized that by letting go of my need to control everything, I was able to experience life more fully. I wasn't constantly worried about the future or stressing over what might go wrong. Instead, I focused on the present moment, trusting that everything was unfolding as it should. Prayer had taught me to be patient, to trust the process, and to have faith in the unknown. It had helped me find peace in uncertainty and clarity in chaos. And as I continued to practice it, I began to see that the power of prayer wasn't just in the answers it provided, but in the way it shifted my entire perspective on life. As my relationship with prayer deepened, I started to see how much more it could offer me than just personal peace or clarity. Prayer became a catalyst for transformation, not just in my personal life, but also in my professional journey. The lessons I was learning about trust, surrender, and patience were beginning to shape the way I approached challenges and decision-making in business. One of the key shifts I experienced through prayer was the ability to be more present in my daily life. In business, especially as an entrepreneur, it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of tasks, deadlines, and never-ending to-do lists. There's always something demanding your attention, and it often feels like you're juggling too many things at once. Prayer taught me how to pause, how to be mindful of the present moment, and how to make decisions from a place of calm and centeredness. I'll never forget a particular situation when I had to make a crucial decision that would impact the future of my company. There was a project we had been working on for months, and the pressure to deliver was mounting. I felt overwhelmed by the stakes, and I was being pulled in 100 different directions. Every day, there was a new challenge, a new problem to solve, and I felt like I was drowning in tasks. It was during this period of intense pressure that I turned to prayer. I asked for clarity, for strength, and for guidance in making the right decision. But more importantly, I prayed for the ability to stay grounded in the present moment, to make decisions not from a place of fear or anxiety, but from a place of calm and clarity. I asked for the wisdom to see the bigger picture, to trust the process, and to stay true to my values, even when the world seemed to be pulling me in different directions. The act of praying helped me slow down. It gave me the space to take a step back and reflect on the situation from a fresh perspective. Instead of rushing into decisions, I began to take my time, to carefully consider all options, and to listen to my intuition. I also learned to ask for support from others when I needed it, trusting that I didn't have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders alone. One of the most powerful realizations during this time was that I didn't have to have all the answers right away. Prayer taught me the importance of patience, not just in waiting for things to unfold, but in trusting that the right decisions would reveal themselves over time. I didn't need to rush into every decision or force an outcome. I simply needed to take the next step, knowing that the path would unfold as long as I stayed true to my values. In the weeks that followed, I found that by practicing mindfulness through prayer, I was able to make decisions with a greater sense of confidence. The pressure to be perfect, to get everything right, began to dissipate. I realized that perfection wasn't the goal, progress was. Prayer helped me understand that making mistakes was not a failure, it was simply part of the process. Each decision, each step, was an opportunity to learn and grow, and as long as I stayed present and mindful, I would be on the right path. This shift in mindset not only improved my decision making but also had a profound impact on my relationships with my team and clients. I became a more thoughtful leader, one who was able to listen more attentively, respond with empathy, and make decisions that were aligned with the values of my business. Prayer had helped me develop a deeper sense of self-awareness, and it made me realize that the way I approached challenges directly affected the way those around me responded to them. I also noticed that my energy levels were more balanced. In the past, I had a tendency to burn myself out, pushing myself to the limit in pursuit of success. I had always believed that hard work meant working non-stop, that success could only be achieved through sheer willpower. But prayer taught me the importance of rest, of taking time to recharge, and of finding balance between work and personal life. Through prayer, I learned to set boundaries, to listen to my body, and to prioritize my well-being. I began to understand that success isn't just about achieving external goals, it's also about taking care of yourself. Maintaining your physical, emotional, and spiritual health. Prayer became my daily reminder to slow down, to breathe, and to create space for rest and renewal. This newfound sense of balance began to affect all aspects of my life. I became more present with my family, more engaged with my friends, and more intentional in the way I spent my time. I realized that success wasn't just about building a business or achieving professional milestones. It was also about cultivating meaningful relationships and living a life that felt fulfilling on a deeper level. I also noticed that my relationship with money and success began to change. In the past, I had viewed financial success as the ultimate goal, the thing that would bring me happiness and fulfillment. But through prayer, I began to see money and success as tools, not as the end goal. I understood that true fulfillment comes from living in alignment with my values, from being present with the people I love, and from making a positive impact in the world. I began to reframe my perspective on success. Instead of measuring success by how much money I made or how many clients I had, I started to measure success by how much peace I had in my heart, how much love I gave, and how aligned I was with my purpose. Prayer helped me understand that when I focused on these deeper values, everything else would follow naturally. This change in mindset was liberating. It allowed me to let go of the constant pressure to prove myself, to achieve more, and to do everything perfectly. I started to trust that as long as I stayed true to my values, success would come in its own time, and it would come in a way that felt authentic and meaningful. Looking back, I can see how far I've come. Prayer has not only transformed my business but also my entire life. It has taught me to be present, to trust the process, to embrace imperfection, and to cultivate gratitude and mindfulness. It has shown me that the true power of prayer lies not in asking for things, but in aligning ourselves with a deeper sense of purpose and trust. As I continue to experience the transformative power of prayer in my personal and professional life, I began to notice another profound effect that it had. It helped me develop a deeper sense of compassion. The more I practiced prayer, the more I felt a connection to others, not just in my immediate circle but to the world at large. I started to see beyond the surface of people's struggles and challenges, and I began to understand the deeper stories they were carrying. One of the key lessons I learned through prayer was the importance of empathy. In a world that often feels divided, where people are quick to judge and blame, prayer reminded me to pause and consider the emotional, mental, and spiritual state of those around me. It taught me that we all have our battles, our struggles, and our burdens, and that kindness and understanding are the most powerful ways to connect with others. In the past, when someone would make a mistake or treat me poorly, I would quickly react out of frustration or hurt. But prayer helped me understand that reacting impulsively often led to misunderstandings and further conflict. Through prayer, I learned to take a step back, breathe, and respond with compassion instead of judgment. I began to ask myself, what might this person be going through? What could they be experiencing that would cause them to act this way? This shift in perspective didn't just improve my personal relationships, it also positively impacted my business relationships. In the world of entrepreneurship, it's easy to become consumed by competition, deadlines, and the need to prove your worth. There were times when I found myself frustrated with clients, partners, or even employees who didn't meet my expectations. But instead of reacting harshly, I began to approach these situations with patience and understanding. For example, I remember a time when a client was consistently late with payments, which caused significant stress for my business. In the past, I would have immediately confronted them, demanding an explanation or threatening to end our partnership. But instead, I prayed about the situation, asking for wisdom and understanding. When I met with the client, I took a calm and compassionate approach. I asked them about their challenges and listened to their concerns without judgment. It turned out that they were going through a difficult personal time, which was affecting their ability to manage their business. We worked together to come up with a plan to address the situation, and the relationship ended up strengthening as a result. This experience was a turning point for me. It taught me that empathy and understanding are far more powerful than anger or frustration. Prayer had helped me see beyond the surface, beyond the immediate challenges, and understand the deeper causes of conflict. By approaching every situation with compassion, I found that I was able to build stronger, more trusting relationships, both personally and professionally. But the most profound change that prayer brought about was in my ability to forgive. Before embracing the power of prayer, I had a tendency to hold on to grudges. When someone wronged me, I would replay the situation in my mind, stewing over the injustice and allowing resentment to build. This negativity weighed on me and created a barrier between myself and the people I cared about. I knew it was unhealthy, but I didn't know how to let go. Through prayer, I learned the true meaning of forgiveness. It wasn't about excusing someone's behavior or pretending that everything was okay. It was about releasing the hold that anger and resentment had over me. I realized that when I held on to grudges, I was only hurting myself. I was allowing the negative energy of anger to take root in my heart, preventing me from experiencing peace and joy. I remember the first time I truly forgave someone who had wronged me. It was a colleague who had betrayed my trust, and I had carried that hurt with me for months. I had been angry and bitter, but I finally realized that I couldn't move forward in my life or my business until I let go of that anger. I prayed for the strength to forgive, asking for the peace to release the resentment that had built up inside me. When I finally spoke to this person, I was able to express my feelings without the weight of anger or bitterness. I forgave them, and in doing so, I felt an immense sense of relief. Forgiveness didn't just heal my relationship with that person, it also healed my heart. It freed me from the burden of negativity and allowed me to move forward with a greater sense of peace. I understood that forgiveness is not about letting others off the hook, it's about freeing yourself from the toxic emotions that hold you back. Prayer had given me the tools to forgive, and it was one of the most liberating experiences of my life. As I continued to practice prayer, I also began to see the importance of service. Prayer had helped me realize that my life wasn't just about achieving success for myself, but about using my gifts and resources to serve others. It was a subtle shift in perspective, but one that made a huge difference in how I viewed my business and my role in the world. I began to ask myself, how can I use my success to make a positive impact? How can I use my platform to help others? Prayer had opened my eyes to the idea that true success isn't just about financial gain or personal achievement. It's about creating value for others, making a difference in people's lives, and contributing to the greater good. I started volunteering my time, sharing my expertise with others, and supporting causes that I cared about. I also made it a priority to give back in my business, whether through charitable donations or by providing opportunities for others to succeed. Prayer had shown me that success is not a zero-sum game. It's about lifting others up as you rise, creating a ripple effect of positivity and change. Through prayer, I had found my deeper purpose, not just to build a successful business, but to make a meaningful impact on the world. It was no longer about what I could gain, but about what I could give. And that shift in mindset, that sense of purpose, was the true reward of prayer. As I reflect on this transformative journey, I realize that prayer has done more than just guide me through challenging moments or bring me peace during times of uncertainty. It has fundamentally reshaped how I view life, success, and my purpose in the world. Through prayer, I discovered not only a deeper connection with my inner self, but also a profound connection to others. It has become the cornerstone of my existence, the thread that weaves together every aspect of my life, my work, my relationships, and my personal growth. One of the most profound revelations I had during this journey was the realization that prayer doesn't just change external circumstances, it changes the way we respond to life's challenges. Before I embraced the power of prayer, I often approached problems with fear, anxiety, and a sense of urgency. I believed that if I just worked hard enough, stressed enough, and pushed myself beyond my limits, I could control the outcome. But prayer taught me that some things are beyond my control. It taught me to trust, to let go, and to surrender to the process. This shift in mindset was liberating. It didn't mean that I stopped striving for my goals, but it meant that I stopped clinging to outcomes. I began to focus more on the journey itself, trusting that the right things would unfold at the right time. This change in perspective allowed me to approach both my personal and professional life with a sense of ease that I had never experienced before. I became less attached to the idea of perfection and more focused on progress. I learned to embrace the ups and downs, understanding that every step, every success, and every failure is part of the larger picture. Prayer helped me see that success is not about the end result, it's about how you show up every day, how you navigate challenges, and how you stay aligned with your values and purpose. As I began to incorporate prayer more deeply into my daily routine, I noticed that I became more resilient. The inevitable setbacks that come with life and business no longer felt like insurmountable obstacles. Instead of seeing challenges as roadblocks, I began to view them as opportunities for growth. Prayer helped me cultivate patience, allowing me to trust the timing of things. When things didn't go as planned, instead of reacting with frustration, I learned to pause, reflect, and find the lesson in the experience. I realized that some of the most important lessons in life come from the moments when things don't go as expected. The more I practiced prayer, the more I understood the importance of surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up or resigning to fate. It means letting go of the need to control everything and trusting that there is a greater plan at work. Prayer taught me that when I release my grip on the outcomes, I open myself up to receiving what I truly need, not necessarily what I think I want. It's a humbling experience, but one that brings with it a deep sense of peace. I also began to see the profound effect of prayer on my relationships. By praying for understanding, compassion, and patience, I became more empathetic towards the people in my life. I stopped rushing to judgment and began to listen with an open heart. I learned that the power of prayer isn't just about receiving personal guidance, it's also about using that wisdom to serve others. I found that as I prayed for clarity in my own life, I was also able to guide and support those around me in a more meaningful way. Whether it was helping a friend through a difficult time or offering advice to a colleague, I started to see how my own growth through prayer allowed me to help others grow as well. This sense of interconnectedness became even more apparent when I considered how prayer had influenced my business. I realized that my success in business was not solely the result of my hard work, but also of the relationships I built and the values I upheld. Through prayer, I found a deeper sense of purpose in my work. It was no longer just about profit or achieving external markers of success. It was about creating something that aligned with my values and contributed to the well-being of others. I started to approach my business with a spirit of service, focusing not just on the bottom line, but on the impact I was making in the lives of my clients, employees, and community. Looking back, I am in awe of the changes that prayer has brought into my life. It has turned challenges into opportunities for growth, relationships into bonds of mutual respect and love, and my work into a meaningful endeavor. Prayer has been a guiding light, illuminating the path even when the way forward seemed unclear. It has given me the strength to persevere in difficult times and the humility to embrace success without arrogance. But perhaps the most significant change prayer has brought about is a deeper sense of gratitude. As I began to pray regularly, I found myself becoming more aware of the blessings in my life. The simple joys, the warmth of a hug from a loved one, the beauty of a sunrise, the quiet moments of peace became sources of immense gratitude. Prayer helped me cultivate a mindset of abundance, where I no longer focused on what I didn't have, but on the countless blessings I was receiving every day. It was through this gratitude that I found true fulfillment, not in the external achievements, but in the internal peace that comes from recognizing the goodness in my life. Today, I can confidently say that the power of prayer has changed my life in ways I never imagined. It has transformed my mindset, my relationships, my business, and my sense of self. It has taught me to trust in the process, to embrace challenges, to serve others, and to find peace in the present moment. Prayer has not only been a source of personal transformation, but a way of living a life of purpose and meaning. And so, I ask you, are you ready to experience the power of prayer in your own life? Are you willing to open your heart, to trust the process, and to let go of the need to control everything? The beauty of prayer is that it is available to all of us. At any time, in any place. It is not just a tool for seeking answers or guidance, it is a way of life. A practice that can transform every aspect of your existence. If you are ready to embrace the power of prayer, I encourage you to start today. Take a moment to pause, to breathe, and to connect with the deepest part of yourself. Trust that as you pray, you are not only inviting change into your life, but also aligning yourself with a greater purpose. In the end, the power of prayer is not just about changing your life, it's about changing the way you live, the way you view the world, and the way you show up for others. It's a journey that will continue to unfold, one step at a time, and I am forever grateful for the lessons it has taught me.